When I first started thinking about sport as a religion, the first thing that came to my mind was the FIFA World Cup, specifically the FIFA World Cup in Brazil. This was a unique year for the FIFA World Cup because Brazil is kind of the hub, especially in the Americas and around the world, of soccer. They've won more World Cups than any other country, and soccer in Brazil is the greatest form of religion. All over the world, you find soccer being played in third world countries and developed countries, and the biggest aspect of that is the fact that we can all come together every 4 years and we shut down our daily lives and our governments get involved. Everybody gets involved and we watch our teams play this simple game that's soccer. But it brings us together. And specifically throughout this presentation, I want to talk about all the aspects that and why FIFA is and the FIFA World Cup is the greatest, not only sporting event, but the greatest form of religion we have worldwide that unite us all under one game. I want to touch briefly on the history of the World Cup. In 1908, the first competitive soccer tournament took place in the Summer Olympics. And FIFA was founded with the idea that they wanted to create an international tournament apart from the Olympics. They saw the future of soccer and they saw the competitive and the religious aspect of it that they just wanted to run with. And initially, people kind of laughed at them because back then, travel costs were high and there was no television. So these tournaments couldn't be broadcasted to people in the home countries. So a lot of countries didn't have an incentive to go to these host countries, spend all the money when people couldn't from their home couldn't watch it. So FIFA had some troubles in the beginning, but in the mid to early 1900s, when soccer began to grow and began to become the most popular sport in the world, FIFA saw a lot of success. And they finally convinced enough countries to come to the first host nation, which was Uruguay, to participate in the first ever FIFA World Cup tournament. And since then, FIFA's tournaments have exploded and become one of the most viewed spectacles, if not the most viewed spectacle in the world. And in 1982, because of the popularity, they had to expand to 24 teams. And again, in 1998 to 32. And just recently in 2013, they came out with a plan to increase it to 40 teams. Soccer, a lot of people, around the world, especially in the United States, kind of wonder why soccer is so popular. Here in the U.S., we have 6 major sports, and soccer is kind of at the bottom of those sports. And something that a lot of people don't consider is soccer is the cheapest sport to play. All you need is a ball, and you don't even need 2 nets. You can set up 2 T-shirts at the end of a field or at the end of a pitch, and that can signify a goal. So soccer was the easiest way for a lot of poverty-stricken communities and third world countries to kind of distress and get away from the real world. So soccer all over the world took off, especially when this FIFA World Cup came out in the mid 1900s. Countries kind of wanted to get involved, and they saw that this was what everyone else was doing. So soccer is considered in the United States the quote-unquote poor sport because it costs the least amount of money. But around the world, that is something that they strive for, and that's something that is unique to soccer, is it doesn't require really any money to play. And thus the World Cup is the most followed sporting tournament in the world because so many people around the world play and because they have that connection to their national team. I want to start talking specifically about soccer in Brazil. Brazil is a very passionate country when it comes to soccer. They view soccer as, you can go on YouTube and you can find videos of people saying soccer is the greatest form of religion in Brazil. I'll never forget watching the World Cup, the semifinal World Cup game against Brazil and Germany, and Brazil got absolutely slaughtered, and you can just see just the utter shock and most fans crying in the stands. And in a lot of places, for sport to do that, that's pretty crazy. But in Brazil, that's normal. Their culture strives on this sport. Banks close 3 hours before each game, so workers can go home and watch. All the towns and all the cities, all of the shops are just shut down. This whole community, this whole country, regardless of what's going on, comes together to support their team, and that's why it was so heartbreaking for them. Soccer in Brazil is the biggest spectacle, and it is the one thing that unites all of them under whoever's ruling under any sort of inter-country conflicts. They can all come together and especially with their success. They've won a record 5 World Cups, and they're kind of like the monopoly of soccer. So they love that. They love that title. They expect great things every time they go out. And that's why it's so disappointing and crushing to them when they lose these big games, because their expectations are so high. Something that's very unique to religions is they have their heroes and they have their sacred places. For each religion you find, there's always a place of worship. There's always somebody that they worship too. And in soccer, that's nothing different, specifically in Brazil. Soccer stadiums in Brazil is kind of the utopia of this religion. They can go there and they can relax, and everything outside of the soccer stadium doesn't matter. They all go in their yellow and blue jerseys, and they're all best friends there. Like you could hate somebody within your own community, but when the World Cup comes around, you all go and you all unite under this one color, this yellow and this blue color, and it becomes its own community within the soccer stadium. They relax there, and it's their kind of getaway. And at the same time, soccer legends such like Pele, Ronaldinho, Neymar, and David Luiz receive the highest praise in Brazil. They're considered celebrities. They're above celebrities. If they are deemed as these heroes and as these sacred people because of the success that they brought to Brazil soccer and because of how much they've done for the country. These are really the people that they all have their own little ritual where they rub their jersey, their Neymar jersey or their Pele jersey. And I've actually heard stories of people saying that Pele jerseys aren't allowed to touch the ground in Brazil, which is something that's extremely unique and you never really find with sports. And that just shows you how much these people, these heroes, and these sacred places really mean to this culture and community. Something unique about FIFA is the fact that they're actually a registered charity. So they have a lot of tax exemptions, and they only pay a small portion of taxes in their own country of Switzerland. So this allows them to spend more time and spend more money on programs around the world to help communities in need relax and distress for a little bit through a game that can unite everyone throughout the world. So specifically, they'll send star players like Ronaldo, who just finished up a tour last summer in Africa, playing with these communities in need, and just taking the adults and the teenagers and the kids away from their daily struggles and situations that they have at home, and just play a game with them. And to them, it means the world because they're playing with one of the biggest icons in the sport and in the world. Ronaldo is probably one of the most commonly used name when talking about sports in the world. So to them, it means the world, and to him, he's a huge contributor to these charities because he understands the impact that he has. And something extremely unique is that every year, if you watch the World Cup, you'll notice that a child goes out with the introductions and with one player before the game is started. And this is done through the Street Child World Cup program, which is designed to bring street children from around the world to the World Cup for the whole event. And one of the special things they do is they're allowed to go onto the field and with a specific player and see what it's like in these giant stadiums. And to them, they'll never forget it. So it's a great program that FIFA does, and it's just one of the few things that they do around the world to really help curb this communities in need. Something unique about the situation that Brazil faced when they were chosen to host the World Cup of 2014 was the riots and the protests that occurred right afterwards, because Brazil was facing a lot of problems, including high unemployment. There wasn't enough housing for the people. They were going through a recession, and there was a water and food crisis. And everybody knows how much these World Cups cost. And Brazil actually spent a record $14 billion on theirs, which is the highest in history. And the people who live in the country felt like they were getting gypped, and they were confused as to why this money wasn't going towards relief and effort to try to curb these crises that they're facing. And something specific within that is the fact that they spend millions of dollars on these gigantic stadiums that will only be used for a couple months during these games. And that's a big problem that these countries hosting the World Cup is facing, because they're building these mega stadiums to try to outdo each other and to try to be the best host nation in the World Cup. But they're only using them for the duration of the World Cup. and they can't quite figure out how exactly to utilize these stadiums once everybody leaves. And something specific to Brazil is they actually built stadiums within the Amazon jungle, and one that was so remote and so far out there that there weren't roads that they could use to get there. So they actually had to ship the material to make these stadiums through a 4-day river trip on boats, and that just added to the amount of money that they were spending on building these eccentric stadiums that were only used for a certain period of time. And something that's pretty special, that was pretty surprising to see, was that although Brazil protested and didn't want the World Cup, when it showed up, they all came out in record numbers to support them, which is again showing how big this religion and how big this sport means to them. Because although they didn't want it, once it came, they were all in full support, and they were all full. They all really wanted it, and they all showed out in record numbers to support their local team because they understood that although they fought it, it was here, and this was more important to them. This all ties back to the fact that this big sport is the one religion the whole world can come underneath, because it's the one sport that everybody plays, and it's extremely unique to see these giant spectacles within the World Cup, and to see the whole world just stop and support these teams. The governments of these big countries like the United States and Germany and Russia, also you can all see pictures of them inside their house watching the World Cup, and them all reacting to victories, and it's so special that there's nothing else like it, especially in a world where religious disputes are everywhere, and where countries hate other countries, and we're all about our country's better than everyone else's. But it's really cool to see everyone unified under this one game, where it's just a ball and 2 goals, and for the sportsmanship afterwards is these players from other countries who are fighting against them during the game. After the game, they all they shake hands. There's a lot of jersey trading. It's all under this sportsmanship ethic, which is very cool to see, and it is extremely special, and that's why it's cool that it comes around every 4 years, because it really makes you appreciate how big this sport is, and it's awesome to see the whole world just come together, and that's really why it should be, and it is, the world's religion.